with the Heiner 17. A big thanks to everyone who supported AM 950. We're giving back with the 2025 AM 950 calendar. Donate $10 monthly or $30 one time for the calendar, or include Tom Hartman's signed book with $25 monthly or $100 one time. Visit am950radio.com to support progressive independent media.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Broadcasting live from the studios of AM 950 KTNF, the progressive voice of Minnesota, and streaming live right now on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/@thegailyshow. That's GAILY. This is The Gaily Show. I am your host, JP Derabagosian. Joining me in studio is our executive producer, Jim Pounds. Hello, Jim.
Hello, all.
And as we're getting started today, breaking news, this was literally just handed to me. Brave New Workshop is rolling out into the holidays with big Christmas energy, and we have tickets to give away to you. Their hilarious annual holiday celebration full of sketches and songs to make your spirits bright. It's time to put the rest of the year behind you, noggin yourself into oblivion, and deck the halls with reckless abandon. You can follow us on our Facebook page. Just search for The Gaily Show. Follow us there. You'll be entered to win. And also, later in the show, we will be giving away tickets live on the broadcast. We will give you that number to call in. Actually, I'm going to give you that number to call in right now. It is 952-946-6205. That number again is 952-946-6205. Or you can chat with us on our live stream on YouTube. Yesterday, and I think I'm already doing it, I was talking a mile a minute because I was so excited to be with you all here in this expanded daily version of our show. But today, I've got to be chill because of who our guest is. Our guest is Representative Brion Curran. Representative Curran represents District 36B. And she was just elected to serve as assistant DFL leader for the upcoming biennium. For folks listening outside of Minnesota, DFL stands for the Democratic Farmer Labor Party. And Representative Curran is also the chair of the Queer Legislators Caucus. Now, of note, as I was doing my research, LGBTQ Nation called Brion one of the most prolific legislators in Minnesota since they were elected in 2022. And for good reason, as I was also looking it up. I mean, Representative Curran is a library of bills that they wrote and or helped get passed. We're talking about Minnesota's Trans Refuge Declaration, the conversion therapy ban, the trans panic defense ban, legal cannabis legislation. That's just to name a few. So very excited to welcome Representative Curran to the show. Hello, welcome to The Gaily Show.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely. So, let's start with the upcoming session, which is supposed to start a week from today, or maybe not. I was reading in the Minnesota Reformer that the DFL may decide to sit out the first couple weeks of the session. What, if anything, can you share with us about that?
Yeah, so if folks were paying attention to the Minnesota House of Representatives media yesterday, there were back-to-back press conferences, one held by the GOP, one held by the DFL. Up until this point, everybody's been moving forward with the plan to have equal power sharing at the Capitol. And so that was reinforced yesterday in our portion in our press conference that the voters across Minnesota, each voter doesn't vote for necessarily bipartisan leadership like this to be a tie, right? And we recognize that. But overall, collectively, Minnesotans across the state put in a tie at the legislature. And what a unique opportunity we have to get down to some truly bipartisan issues and things that get left behind. And so that's where we're at. We're expecting to show up day one with the agreement that's already been released. Everybody's got access now to the committee structure and kind of how that will go. And so that is the expectation. Neither party has a 68 vote majority that's necessary to operate. So we're going into this as agreed upon, as negotiations have been moving forward. And so, that is the plan. That is the plan, is to be there day one, provided that we have a power sharing agreement.
So for folks who are wondering, wait, what is happening here? So after the election, it was 67-67, perfectly split even between the DFL and GOP. I use perfect there in quotation marks.
Yeah.
And then there's now been a special election for a district in Roseville. So that election actually isn't happening until the end of the month. It sounds like, as I'm understanding it, the GOP is making a power play move and saying, well, right now we have 67 votes and the DFL has 66, so we're just going to take control of everything. Do I have that accurate?
Yeah, I mean, that's what we heard in the GOP press conference yesterday is up until this point, everyone was operating, moving forward under a 67-67, acknowledging that, like I said, even, without a 68 member majority in either side, we're going to have to move forward in a tied environment. That was already agreed upon, and that's what we continue to look forward to. And so, it'll be up to, in my opinion, it'll be up to the GOP to abide by the agreement we already have.
Like adults, right? Can I just say that?
I mean, I think it's pretty adult and mature to abide by an agreement we already had and put out publicly. Yeah.
Right. Doesn't seem like a lot to ask.
Right.
So walk us through what that power sharing agreement looks like.
Sure. So what's already been published out there is, the list of committees that were agreed upon by both parties. The committee list does look a little bit different than it did last biennium. The committee list does change every biennium, just here and there a little bit, depending on who's in office. And so that current committee structure that's co-power sharing, equal power sharing that's been published has co-chairs, one chair from the DFL side, one chair from the GOP side. And the plan moving forward is to have alternating chairs on different days of committee where each chair will have the opportunity where they direct the hearings of the day in committee. And the structure of the committees as far as passing votes would require that the majority of a committee be in favor of a bill or vote to pass it so that it gets to the floor. And that's a bit different from in the past. It could depend on if somebody got up, too many people went up and went to the bathroom at the same time, or a couple people were out sick. There was a chance that someone could call for a vote and take advantage of who was not in the room. Moving forward with equal power, having equal members on all committees, it would require that at least one member from one party or another vote in alignment with the other side.
That's interesting.
So when will we know? I'm sure you can't answer that right now, of whether or not the session will start. I guess we're looking for the GOP to walk back what they said yesterday and agree that yes, this is how we're going to operate moving forward, regardless of the turnout of the special election.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We've already had these discussions. Our leadership with each other has had these discussions. All the points that have been made about equal power sharing and all the benefits for the public that provides, that all remains true. And I'm just hoping that we can have 134 House members, or 133 at least at the beginning, who agree that this is what we came up with and this is how we move forward.
Well, thank you for that. I know we won't be able to know right now. We'll have to wait and see how it turns out over the next 7 days. So thank you for the update related to that. I do want to ask, what are the big DFL then priorities for this upcoming session, given that it would be in this power sharing agreement? Like, what are the items that the DFL is hoping to pass?
Yeah, so I could give you my list of things that I think are priorities for my district. I could also give you a list of what the DFL as a party would like to see. I think being a DFL person myself, a lot of those are in alignment. We did a lot of good work in the last 2 years working on making Minnesota more prosperous for the average family. And folks will talk about having a large amount of money available and suddenly it's not there. But we really have to get down to the accounting of how all of that works out. And quite a chunk of that money went towards savings for the average person. So when we take away from tax revenue somewhere, then we've got to make up for or we'll look at a deficit somewhere unless we make that up. And so, folks did get some of the largest tax breaks that we've seen in history for the average family. And so the DFL, as I know, and also agree with, wants to continue to make sure that the average person in Minnesota can thrive. And, you know, I say that differs a bit from some GOP priorities that we've seen, you know, last biennium, bills authored to decrease taxes for corporations and things like that. Those aren't bills that you see drafted by DFLers, and you won't see those in the future.
I want to acknowledge, I have a question that this is very ignorant on my part. I'm from California originally, and when I came here, there was such, I thought, respect for people like Alan Spear and Karen Clark. You know, we've had such a great heritage of LGBT representation in Minnesota. And I want to acknowledge that we're just all three sitting here, all members of the LGBT community, talking on a commercial radio station. I think that's unprecedented, kind of, you know, on a daily show. So we're very proud that you're here. Is there a reason why we have an even number of representatives? That doesn't make sense to me. On some mathematical level, you would always want an uneven number, right? Is there a reason for that you understand to be true?
You know, that's what the Minnesota State Constitution calls for and has called for years and years. Not saying that it's impossible to restructure that, but that'd be a heavy conversation. We'd be looking at how the state is districted currently and divided up among representatives. And so in order to have each House member, I should back up. If we wanted to have an uneven number of House members, we would have to redistribute how folks are, you know, calculated in districts for every Senate district. And so that would affect who senators represent as well and which areas they represent. So not to say that's something that's impossible, but we're working under the current Minnesota State Constitution, and that's what we have.
Right.
We've got about 90 seconds here before our first commercial break. We know that there is the special election for the district seat in Roseville. Do you have an update on what's occurring with the seat in Shakopee? Shakopee, I keep doing that. In Shakopee.
He's not from Minnesota.
You tell I'm not from Minnesota. I cannot believe I just did that on the air. But that one, there was an issue with the vote ballots not being accurately counted. Is there an update there? Is that going to be in play, or is that just considered settled at this point?
To my knowledge, there's not an update, at least as from the court perspective. So we are waiting to see what the judgment says to respond specifically to what is in those notes. As far as I'm aware, as far as the voters are aware, they elected Brad Tabke as the next representative for the Shakopee area. No facts of the case that have been presented indicate a mathematical possibility where Brad loses that race. It's just
thank you for that. We're going to keep talking about that. We're going to hit this first break. More with Representative Curran after this break. See you on the flip side.
Hey, it's Patrick. Your friends and family may be gone now, but the messes that were left behind on your carpets, rugs, upholstery, and more remain. That's why you need to call my cleaning heroes at Zero Res and get 2024 out of your house for good. That's why to start the new year, Zero Res is offering 24% off all cleaning services for the month of January. That's 24% off carpets, tiles, rugs, upholstery, any surface in your home, and don't forget about your air ducts. Call Zero Res right now at 952-ZERO-RES or visit ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. But Zero Res isn't just good for cleaning up the post-holiday messes at home. They can make your business look great too. Zero Res was out at the station this fall, and we couldn't have been happier with their quality of work and their professionalism, and the station looks great. So don't wait. Book your home cleaning today. Call 952-ZERO-RES or go to ZeroResMinnesota.com and ask for the AM 950 special. Zero Res.
Turn to Auto Technical with your vehicle donation. We have families waiting for a car. Over 85% of unemployed are successful in finding and keeping a job if they have dependable transportation. A car plus a job equals a life changed. 612-919-5526. We have families waiting for a car. 919-5526 or autotech.org.
Step into the world of movement and native culture at Nimiwin, now showing at All My Relations Arts. Nimiwin is translated as Everyone Dance. This moving multimedia exhibition, curated by Josie Hoffman, delves into the connection between movement and identity, drawing inspiration from dance and powwow traditions. It showcases the work of Indigenous artists from Minnesota, emphasizing the fluidity of movement in our bodies, land, and community. Witness Nimiwin and its powerful expression on Indigenous art. On display now through January 18th at All My Relations Arts in Minneapolis.
Spring and summer is the right time to install your fireplace. Find your perfect fireplace and have it installed and ready before the cold weather hits again. If you already have a wood fireplace, consider a fireplace insert or check out the entire selection at Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces on East Franklin and Riverside in Minneapolis. It will transform your inefficient fireplace into a reliable, environmentally smart heating system.
This is Peter Solak, owner of Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces. Have you ever watched your dog or cat curl up in front of a fire? It's primordial, the way it touches both the animal and the human. We know that fire reaches deep into the heart and soul. Let us show you how. We have over 35 working units on display here in Minneapolis. We are located at the east end of Riverside Avenue at 2901 East Franklin. From I-94, take the Riverside Avenue exit. Find us also online at woodlandstoves.com. Let us help you make a fireplace part of your life.
Woodland Stoves and Fireplaces, out of the ordinary products and services since 1977.
Welcome back to the Gaily Show. I am your host, JP Debragosian. We are taking your calls. Our call-in number is 952-946-6205. That's 952-946-6205. Or you can chat with us on our YouTube live stream. With us still in the virtual studio is Representative Brion Curran, who represents District 36B and is the incoming chair of the Queer Legislators Caucus. And I want to talk about that because, okay, democracy. Big topic. We're dealing with an incoming president who has literally said, or has been literally called a fascist by his former generals and staff. And that's not liberals saying that, that's conservatives calling him a fascist. A lot of his policies we know are anti-democratic. So in my mind, democracy needs to be more than just voting every 2 years. And as Jim was saying in the first segment there, for a long time, we've had, one or two LGBTQ identified legislators in the legislature. Now we have enough folks in the legislature to have our very own caucus, which is a level of queer participation in our state level democracy that is still kind of new to Minnesota. So can you tell us about the Queer Caucus, what it is and what it does?
Yeah, so I appreciate that you're acknowledging, certainly the existence of queer folks in politics forever, right? Whether or not folks were out or able to be out has been different over time. But yeah, really, really lucky and excited that in 2022, every out queer person who ran for state legislature won their election. And so, we ended up with, I think at the time it was 11 folks who were out and running. I believe our caucus between House and Senate is now up to 14 or 15 members, something like that. And so, the strength of the Queer Caucus is really, something that we lean on when it comes to protecting the rights of our queer community. And so, right off the bat, folks know that here is a group of, 14 or so legislators who are committed to doing absolutely, anything it takes to make sure that folks are protected here in Minnesota. That's within our power. What's happening on the federal level is scary. And certainly we're not, ignoring at all what's happening on the federal level. But what is within our control, at least, is how we protect people here in Minnesota. And so having a large group of people with a presence to have that collective voice is certainly more powerful and efficient in messaging than, having someone who served alone and didn't really have this mass to lean on. But I will say, when we first formed the official Queer Caucus ahead of the 2022 session, we had the discussion, what is this caucus for? And so our caucus exists for two primary reasons. One is to stay connected about all the bills and laws that will impact the queer community, and that we agree will look at laws and bills that come through the legislature through the lens of how it could affect people in the queer community. Of course, as representatives, we're always looking at this as through the lens of how it affects folks in our district and across the state. But having a queer caucus ensures that additional lens through each committee that we're represented on. The other part that goes into this queer caucus is having support for one another. This job is tough for any legislator, but we get a certain amount of threats and messages directed at us that other categories of legislators simply don't receive. And so we also recognize that having a queer caucus is a space to maintain our emotional and mental health while we go through this work together.
What are the ways that folks can connect with the Queer Caucus?
So there's a variety of ways. We do have a Facebook page that's the Minnesota Queer Legislators Caucus. We try to keep folks informed with anything related to the caucus on that page there. Folks are always welcome to contact any member that they know of the Queer Caucus at our legislative emails, recognizing that an additional duty that we have as members of the Queer Caucus is to represent folks who don't feel represented by their elected official. And currently, that very likely is half of Minnesotans. And so we recognize, too, that there are 30 plus House districts who feel that they can't go to their House representative for the support that they need if they're a queer person. And so we are all open to those conversations, and absolutely our doors are open for folks who aren't technically our constituents, but certainly are in community.
So then folks who may be considering running for statewide office, they could also connect with you to kind of get a sense of, well, what does it take to do that? And is there an infrastructure? What happens if I get elected? Like, what will happen if I, decide to throw my hat in the ring and whatnot? Like, there's that, I don't know if I would say like a mentorship opportunity, but there are opportunities for folks who are considering running to connect with the caucus to kind of get insights into what that might be.
Yeah, there's, like I said, anyone's welcome to reach out to members of the Queer Caucus. As the chair, is certainly welcome to reach out to me at my legislative email or shoot me a phone call. But, we, again, yeah, we're here to represent everyone. And if that involves questions of how to get involved in the process, absolutely, we want to support people through that.
I remember, if I can ask a question, I remember during legislative lobby days that Out Front did X number of years ago. I was supposed to show up and I had an appointment to meet my representatives, and I got there a little late from my job in Minneapolis. And who was standing in the Out Front offices before he was a representative or a state senator was Scott Dibble. And Scott very graciously walked me through whatever tunnels and whatever, to get from their tent, their organizing tent, to my representative's offices. And I remember thinking, wow, he doesn't even know who I am. He's not a representative. He doesn't know me anything. But there was a great sense of sort of, I don't know, camaraderie, because we were just two gay men, and he was very gracious and very kind. And now, of course, he's risen up into a very important position. But I always remembered that kindness that we could, extend to each other. And so that was, I don't know whether lobby days, when you think about it, if you're an LGBT legislator, and does it really help to have LGBT people talking to LGBT legislators? I don't know. I certainly think it was important to talk to non-LGBT legislators, which both of my representatives were at that time, to hear from us, which they may not do otherwise. But is lobby days, I know that still goes on. That still happens every year, right? Is that comes up early in session, as I seem to recall, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We still have lobby days. That's up to individual organizations and groups, if they want to schedule time to have their day at the Capitol. That's still going on. Accessibility will be a little bit different just because House members are in a different building. But folks who want to sign up for lobby days and try to contact us will get that information. But yeah, absolutely, there are still lobby days, and I highly encourage folks yes, you wanna meet with your elected officials as much as possible to discuss the issues that are important to you. Sometimes you won't get that meeting, or you might walk away not feeling supported in that meeting, or maybe you do walk away feeling supported and maybe pleasantly surprised by what you might have in common with a state rep who's maybe of a different political party than you are.
I have to fit in a quick break here. We'll have more with Representative Brion Curran after this break. Support our sponsors. They keep progressive radio on the air.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950 for Snap Construction again. Does your home feel colder than it should with the furnace constantly running? Or do certain rooms always feel colder than the rest of the house? Those are signs the attic in your home may need an insulation upgrade. Snap Construction can help by providing a free energy audit for your home's insulation. The average cost of getting new insulation can cost much less than a new furnace. Plus, Snap Construction is a BPI certified installer. That means if you use Snap for your next insulation project, you qualify for up to $650 in total rebates from your energy provider. After my free inspection, my insulation upgrade was completed within a few weeks and the rebate check was in the mail. Snap to it and reduce your heating bill this winter with Snap Construction. Call 612-333-SNAP. That's 612-333-SNAP for your free energy audit when you mention AM 950. Snap Construction, arguably the most well-reviewed exterior contractor and insulation company in the metro.
8 years ago, over 100,000 Minnesotans marched to the state capitol, standing together to defend women's rights, immigrants' rights, queer rights, and justice for all. Now, as our freedoms face new threats under an incoming administration built on oppression and divisiveness, it's time to stand together again. Join the People's March on January 18th at the Minnesota State Capitol. Together, we'll send a clear and unmistakable message. We will not go back. Building on the legacy of the Women's March Minnesota, this year's event will include a march to the Capitol and a rally. You'll connect with Minnesota organizations working to protect our rights. These organizations need your support, not just now, but over the next 4 years and beyond. The weather may be cold, but our commitment is unbreakable. The stakes are too high to stay silent. Let's show the strength of our voices as we fight for Minnesota's future. Again, that's the People's March on Saturday, January 18th at the state capitol. Details at womensmarchmn.com.
AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, I'm Philip Anthony, host of the Downright Upright Show, airing right here on AM 950 radio, Saturdays at 5 p.m. Join me as I dive into captivating conversations with people from all walks of life. As a proud member of the LGBTQ community, I celebrate diversity and beyond with unique stories that make us fantabulous. Please join me every Saturday at 5 p.m. or wherever you listen to podcasts.
With your AM 950 weather, I'm Brett Johnson. Look for partly cloudy skies today with a high near 20, tonight partly cloudy with a low around 6, and Wednesday sunny with a high near 17. Experience a great atmosphere with great music at Crooner's Supper Club. Explore the shows at croonersmn.com. Stop by Maggie's Lounge before or after your show for cocktails and light fare. Open Wednesdays through Sundays at 4:30. No tickets needed. Again, that's Maggie's Lounge at Crooner's Supper Club.
And you're back with us here at the Gaily Show. Our call-in number is 952-946-6205, 952-946-6205, or you can chat with us on our YouTube live stream. Representative Brion Curran, is still here with us. I have a question about Project 2025 and states' rights. So we know that it's coming, and a lot of folks in the queer community are asking what's headed our way, but how can Minnesota respond to this? So, for example, we are a trans refuge state, and we know that Project 2025 is going to do everything it can at the federal level to erase trans rights and do everything they can to attack transgender, nonconforming, and non-binary community. How can we in Minnesota fortify being a trans refuge state and maybe even expand on it?
Yeah, a couple of things to discuss there. So one is, you had mentioned earlier the different things that we were able to pass over the last couple of years, including making Minnesota a trans refuge state. And so that still holds. The primary goal of the Queer Caucus over the next biennium is to protect the laws that we pass that protect Minnesotans. And so here in Minnesota, that is our number one, is not going back, ensuring that the rights that we the laws that we put in place, the rights that we secured, are not going anywhere. On the federal level, I think it's worth noting that when Roe v. Wade was overturned, the argument there was that states should be able to decide essentially what happens, right? If we're going to have that same argument here when it comes to trans rights or any other sort of legislation, what would give a conservative Supreme Court rationale now to say that no, that states don't have those rights anymore? So I think that's a really difficult precedent to walk back, as difficult as it was to have that result. This is the type of environment we're living in, and I think the Supreme Court is going to have to strongly stick by what they've said as far as states' rights go.
With Congress, they have the power of the purse, right? So they can also say things like, K-12 schools can no longer have DEI programs or LGBTQ, student resource groups. And if you do, then we're going to take away and pull your funding. Is there a mechanism where the state of Minnesota could step in and replace that funding so that schools could continue to offer those programs?
I would say there's not a, sort of blanket answer to that. Each category of something that could block funding here in Minnesota might require a different strategy to try to work out so that we can continue meeting the needs of everybody, including the diverse communities that we have, including the queer community. So, I don't have a blanket answer for you there. It would be situational. I will say, I think before anything is efficiently enacted by a Trump administration, just remember how efficient a Trump administration has been in the past, and it's not so efficient. And so, I will wait to see if any of those threats do start coming to light. But I will say that folks who share our values in protecting our rights as humans, our reproductive rights, and our rights as queer people, any elected official who has stood up and said that they will defend those rights, we certainly hope will continue to stand up and defend those rights and not allow, an entire community who is an entire voting base as well to be, thrown under the bus so that some sort of budget can get passed. We're committed to not going there.
I know a lot of queer people, myself included, have had lots of feelings after the catastrophe of November 5th. May I ask, how have you been sort of trying to reconcile who America has decided to be during this time period? I know everybody's sort of over the map about that, and I hope that's not too personal of a question, but it is. We're trying to create here a platform for helping to process those feelings and figure out how do we respond, how do we build community and whatnot. So if I may ask, how have you personally been reconciling who America has decided it wants to be, apparently?
Yeah, I'm still processing through this, and I'm still coming to some conclusions day to day, are still developing new perspectives as I talk to people on a daily basis. One of my, more recent takes on this is that we had essentially two candidates vying for the presidency in the United States. And the average person, I believe, votes for the candidate that they know, that they like the most, that they maybe think is the most honest or will do best as president. What I don't think is talked about enough is the teamwork that's involved in politics and how important that is. And so, whether or not someone might, like the candidate, for example, Kamala Harris, do you want leadership from the party and the values that she stands for and the people that she would have surrounded herself with to lead the country and the values that we have? And so, Trump is known to people, as known to have been a president. there's disagreement on whether he was a good one or not. I certainly have my opinion that he was a terrible one, and would continue to be a terrible one. But I think, as we move forward through this, a lot of elected officials are making tough decisions. Like I said, we can't go back on our commitment to protecting rights. And so I would ask voters, if we're not happy with the folks who are elected, regardless of party, it might be time to step up and run and have our community support behind you. And, that's absolutely something that we're willing to do too, but keeping in mind that politics is a team sport. The most important members of the team are the voters, and then remembering that political parties work together in order to get things done. So just sort of keeping that in mind going to the polls is, which team are you rooting for?
You had mentioned earlier that the DFL passed a tax cut. And that is not something that is, I think if you polled 10 people on the street, they would say, who's going to give you a tax cut? 10 out of 10 would say the Republican Party. How do you see the DFL communicating to folks the accomplishments that you all have achieved here? Which, and again, I'm from not Minnesota. I've been here, 13 years, but I'm still learning so many things. And there was that legislative session that I learned about called the Minnesota Miracle. I think it was in the 70s. And I feel, looking what you all just did in the 22-23 biennium was another miracle of what all the various things that you were able to get passed and how transformational that is going to be to the state. A lot of people don't know about it. And I think a lot of people will be like, what? My taxes were cut by the DFL? So, as an incoming, taking on a leadership role, how do you see the DFL communicating its accomplishments and the transformational power of it to voters within the state?
Well, I think it's tricky because I feel like the message has been communicated. When you look at communications coming directly from representatives and from the party, the achievements are out there, they're available. But what is also available and really heavily saturated in the media is the other side just flat out saying that these things didn't happen, or mischaracterizing what a tax cut actually was, or, providing misinformation, or just downright things that are not factual. Those messages continue to be pervasive in the media. And we're not going to combat that with additional lies and misinformation. So we keep reiterating, no, we promise this is what we passed. Here, you can read it. Here are links to it. Here's a calculator to find out how much you're going to save, right? But no matter what we do, there's always some folks who are loud back saying, no, that didn't happen. It's hard to battle with folks who are just willing to continue to spread misinformation.
There was something that I particularly found miraculous from the 2022-23 biennium. I'm a dual citizen of France and the US, and the French left gives me nightmares because they all want to, die on their little hill of being correct. And what I saw, that you all had a 1-vote majority in that biennium, and everybody was aligned. Everybody was on board. That team spirit. And you don't see that in other, coalitions in other states per se. You definitely didn't see it at the federal level. What was contributing to that? What kept the DFL so tightly together and on board without someone trying to grandstand and, die on the hill of, no, it should be this way, and if it's not this way, then I'm gonna, shut down the whole thing?
Yeah, I think there were some times where folks within the party, internal, behind closed doors discussions might say, at times they maybe felt like somebody was about to grandstand. But I would, reframe that grandstanding is coming from a place where folks want to do right by their districts. And so any sort of, disagreement that happened was worked out ahead of time. And we, we're strong as a team in coming together, describing the differences to each other and how it impacted our own communities. So when you saw our team come to committee and come to floor, we were prepared. We had those conversations with each other, with each other's support. And when we brought something to the table, we knew it was something the whole team could get behind. That's how you run a team. That's how you make sure that messages remain positive. And, any sort of, like you said, grandstanding, we just didn't have time for that. We certainly didn't have time for days-long debates on types of cheeseburgers and that kind of thing. We were trying to get work done, and we did. That it takes time, it takes work, and it takes teamwork to get that amount of work done in such a short amount of time.
I was even, as it was going along at the session, and I was like, what did they do today? Wait, what did they do today? Wait, what is happening over there? It was very, maybe miraculous is the wrong word, because clearly you all were putting in the effort to have that particular outcome. And so maybe miracle is not the correct adjective for that. Do you still see that coalition there, even in a split House?
Absolutely. I mean, if we're talking about the DFL House members or the DFL as a whole at the state legislature sticking together, we're here for it. I mean, the majority of the team who was working on behalf of Minnesota for the last 2 years is the same team who's moving forward the next 2 years. Very few members of the DFL are new. A lot of us went through the trifecta that we had together, the Minnesota Miracle 2.0 together, and we are committed to protecting all of the great work that we went through together. And I just want to note too, I never want to forget to mention the immense hours and that goes in by all the staff who work for all of us down at the Capitol. Just endless work. And this is not possible without them.
In Minnesota, on November 5th, Pine City elected its very first openly queer mayor. And at the same time, that part of the state very much went for Donald Trump. How do you reconcile this weird behavior where folks will vote for a progressive referendum state measure, right? They'll vote for abortion rights. They'll vote for raising the minimum wage. They'll vote for diverse candidates for local races. But then they vote at governor, president, senatorial levels for the very people that want to undo those things and make sure that the things that they just voted for don't happen. What is that? How are you making sense of that as a leader in the DFL?
Yeah, so, I certainly can't speak for the individual voter. I think folks have split tickets for all sorts of reasons that many of which might be personal to them. Sometimes, on the local level, we just have a better, closer relationship with the people in our community that folks who hold higher office just aren't able to attain because of, the type of work that they do and where they're required to work from out in DC, et cetera. There's that personal relationship aspect of it. There's certainly an element there that lends to the opportunities that folks have had to gain higher office in different parts of government. You are more likely to see folks at what we would call lower or more local levels of government who are of the minority because they're probably just getting started in politics. And you might see folks who are, sort of at that top level. You might not see as much diversity, or at least quite yet, because of the availability those positions had to certain communities.
This has been an absolute delight, Representative Curran. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Gaily Show, devoting so much time to be with us. I hope you've enjoyed it because we very much have on this side of the microphone. So good luck over the next 7 days. Hopefully we're starting with a power sharing agreement. Folks, you can go to the Minnesota Legislators site to check out and connect with Representative Curran and the Facebook page, Queer Legislators Caucus on Facebook. Thank you again, Representative.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your time.
More to come after this break.
8 years ago, over 100,000 Minnesotans marched to the state capitol, standing together to defend women's rights, immigrants' rights, queer rights, and justice for all. Now, as our freedoms face new threats under an incoming administration built on oppression and divisiveness, it's time to stand together again. Join the People's March on January 18th at the Minnesota State Capitol. Together, we'll send a clear and unmistakable message. We will not go back. Building on the legacy of the Women's March Minnesota, this year's event will include a march to the Capitol and a rally. You'll connect with Minnesota organizations working to protect our rights. These organizations need your support, not just now, but over the next 4 years and beyond. The weather may be cold, but our commitment is unbreakable. The stakes are too high to stay silent. Let's show the strength of our voices as we fight for Minnesota's future. Again, that's the People's March on Saturday, January 18th at the state capitol. Details at womansmarchmn.com.
This is Robert Pilot of Native Roots Radio presents I'm Awake, weekdays at 5 p.m. On our show, you'll hear about Native issues like treaties, protecting Mother Earth, and holding our elected officials accountable. Weekly correspondents like Dr. Stately, State Senator Mary Kunesh, Robert Lilligren, and Bob Blake update us with the latest news from Turtle Island. Native issues are human issues, and human issues are Native issues. Listen weekdays at 5 p.m. or watch the show on Native Roots Radio social media accounts. Ho-wah!
It's no secret that medical care costs are soaring, with nursing home and skilled nursing care costs being some of the highest. You don't have to deplete your savings in order to receive long-term care. At Schroman Law, we work with families to develop and implement strategic planning for medical assistance for long-term care, for assisted living, nursing home care, or home-based care. Contact us today to schedule a free consultation at schromanlaw.com. That's SCHROMEN law.com.
Connections Radio Show is all about tapping into our hardwired hunger to connect. We examine meaningful connections to ourselves, our community, and the world around us. By opening the door to innovative insights by a wide variety of interesting guests, we'll make the connections to something bigger than ourselves. Join me, Lori Fitz, your host of Connections Radio Show, and together we'll make the connections. Saturday mornings at 9 a.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Frank Brown with Minuteman Press Uptown. It's election season. If you're campaigning for a candidate, your outreach needs top quality union printed materials, from direct mail and yard signs to door hangers, buttons, t-shirts, and flyers. Minuteman Uptown is your union shop to get people to the polls. We print everything. We'll keep your candidate top of mind, target your message with a laser focus, and maximize your voter turnout efforts. Get started today at mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com.
Welcome back to the Gaily Show. Wow, what a great conversation that was.
That was so exciting to have them on. I just, kudos to you for accomplishing that. And then it just makes me very proud to hear the representatives
I hope
speak.
they enjoyed it too, because I absolutely want to have them to come back and keep us updated on what is happening as we go along the legislative session. I do want to remind folks, Brave New Workshop is rolling into the holidays with big Christmas energy, and we have tickets for you. So if you want to call in right now, the number is 952-946-6205. The lucky third caller will get a pair of tickets to Big Christmas Energy. That number is 952-946-6205 for your tickets to Big Christmas Energy, which is Brave New Workshop's hilarious annual holiday celebration full of sketches and songs to make your spirits bright. We have to find every way that we can to keep our spirits bright, particularly with the inauguration coming up here in just a couple of weeks. I also want to say, for folks who follow still the This Queer Book Saved My Life, we used to have This Queer Book Saved My Life on every Saturday afternoon at 2 p.m. With the expansion of the Gaily Show, we have now had to move This Queer Book Saved My Life back to a podcast only. That's actually how we started, right, Jim? We were an independent podcast and then came into the partnership with AM 950 Radio. They were amazing right from the get-go, wanting to help put us on the radio and support us in that way. And so we're very grateful to them. And we want to let you know, though, that if you're wondering, well, where did the show go? The show is still being produced. We actually had a brand new episode drop today, which you can listen to on am950radio.com, or you can find it everywhere that you get your podcasts, or you can go to our website, thisqueerbook.com. The new episode is talking with YA author Dean Bacchus about the queer book that saved his life, which was, oh my God, I'm blanking on the title of it.
Harriet the Spy
by Louise Fitzhugh.
Right.
And Jim, you were saying earlier today that that's been such an influential book for so many people, and so it's been great to spend a full hour with a guest, talking with them about it.
I'm surprised it took this long for that title to wind up on the show, because an awful lot of people mention it. You know, a guest mentions it or an author mentions it as being critical for them or key for them, but just didn't wind up happening until today. But it's a great episode. We have so many great episodes. I think we're up to 64 episodes now, plus other ancillary episodes. So do check us out there. It's not going anywhere. We're still recording 2 episodes this week, and we have guests through March. So we're that wheel is still turning, as they say.
We are actually working on a series of episodes that we are curating with staff and owners of LGBTQ bookstores specifically. And so we're setting those up right now. We're going to record those, and then we're going to put those together as a series that will be released later this year. So you definitely want to tune in. We release episodes every other Tuesday, thisqueerbook.com, or everywhere that you get your podcasts. I also want to talk about a little bit about this show, The Gaily Show, and what we have coming up this week. So tomorrow we have Sam Oliker-Friedland, who is the executive director of the Institute for Responsive Government. And he's going to be talking about an issue that's very close to your heart, Jim.
Well, since the election, I've been looking for moments of something to be optimistic about, or something that we can do to sort of control our own destiny a little bit in this crazy environment. And automatic voter registration, when I first looked into it, was only available in 3 or 4 states, and handful. Now it's in 23 states. And so Sam's going to talk about the national perspective of automatic voter registration. We just passed one of the things you were talking about in the recent biennium, why that session was so great, that we passed automatic voter registration in the state of Minnesota. Yay. So he's going to talk about it, though, from the national perspective. And I'm really excited to see both that view. And then we're going to, fingers crossed, we're trying to get the Secretary of State of the state of Minnesota, Steve Simon, on the air at some point to talk about it from a local backyard or backdoor sort of perspective. So starting with national.
Well, I think this issue is going to be very important to us. This is kind of our democracy, if you will, talking to the assistant DFL leader and chair of the Minnesota Queer Caucus today, talking about voter registration and expanding the right to vote. Democracy is, you'll see from how we're covering it, is not something that is just voting every 2 years or voting every 4 years anymore. We have a guy that's going into office whose former staff and generals called a fascist, and a lot of the proposals he's outright proposing are outright fascism, or they are sympathetic to it and want to build it out. So we are going to be talking a lot about democracy. If you are somebody who has always wondered what it would be like to run for office, now is your time to start thinking about that. We'll have stuff for you here on the show. This is, what does Tom Hartman say? Tag, you're it. It is going to be something. It's a contact sport, democracy, and we're going to have to do everything we can to participate in it, to defend it. Also, we are going to continue doing our culture and entertainment shows. This is what you've known us all for. And so this upcoming Friday, we have John Heimbach, who is...
Well, you had mentioned that he's an actor, and he is, but he's also the artistic director of Walking Shadow, and that's where I know him from. I've been in 2 shows that John has directed, and they have 2 shows coming up in 2025 that certainly have some queer element to them, so we're going to get more from him.
Perfect. Well, folks, we've come to the end of our time with you today. You can obviously watch us on our YouTube channel, The Gaily Show. Just search for Gaily Show. Follow us on our Facebook page. Follow it now. You'll be entered to win tickets to Big Christmas Energy. And we will see you here tomorrow for another new episode of The Gaily Show. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Matt McNeil is up next. And after that, Native Roots Radio.